Hello and welcome to the Trevor Roberts Talkfest podcast. Tonight we're going to talk about Joey's season of The Bachelor, episode 6, and what an emotional episode it was. It's just, it's really wild to me how much Joey's mood impacted the whole episode, and then also all of the women, and then also me. It's kind of wild to me that like the energy of the episode can sort of seep into me just watching it. I came into watching this episode with so much energy and so much excitement to see what was going to happen next, to see, not that I'm looking forward to people going home, but just as it starts to get down towards the end, it gets way more exciting. I get more into it because you're invested in the women that are still there, and you're sort of getting rid of the ones that are on the edges but we're really not going to make the top 4. And Joey, like, the first thing the episode starts off with is Joey just sharing that he struggles with having energy sometimes. He's like, sometimes he feels like he needs to be this super energetic, like, all right, let's go Joey, but that's just not him all the time. Like, I think that's not him most of the time. He's he's quiet. We've said that from the very beginning, that like he'll be having a conversation with 10 women in a row and you really can't tell what he was thinking the whole time. And then you get the interview that I think every single time he has a little bit of time with someone, he has to go and do a private interview to talk about what his takeaway was. And then he gives you a takeaway that's like, really? I didn't see that on camera. Like, it looked like you were just staring at her, not blinking, giving us nothing. And so I think most of the time he just doesn't have a lot of energy. And I even thought, I wrote down, is this foreshadowing for how the episode's going to go? And it was like, he never comes out of it except for maybe the very end with Maria. And we'll talk about that as we get there. But wow, Joey just really was in all of the feels this episode. You could tell he had no energy at all, and you could tell he was really struggling, and it was impacting the women. Every time there was a group portion or the night portion where everybody kind of huddled around, you could see that that's what the women had been talking about was, wow, like Joey's not feeling great. Now we're not feeling great. Then they go to their little time with him and they talk about how everybody's feeling a little insecure and vulnerable and they're not really sure what's going to happen. And it sort of impacted me. Like, I finished the episode, and then what I always do is just kind of go back over my notes and try to collect my thoughts and just see what is my energy like as I'm about to start. You want to have energy and you want to be exciting. I think if you're going to talk about something online like this, you want to be entertaining for anybody listening, but at the same time, like, you want to just be real in the moment. And this is sort of me right now because of just watching that episode. It just kind of drained me a little bit. So I'm going to try my best to be positive, as Maria would say, and just choose to be happy and excited and tell you my recap of the episode. I want to, I hope that these are interesting for everybody listening as well. Um, my take and the reason I'm doing this is I really enjoy watching the show, but I like to spend a lot of time actually thinking about it and thinking about um, the lessons you can learn. I love relationships that you build with people. Oftentimes in my own true life, or in real life, I am I'm willing to give someone that's willing to give me their time a lot of who I am, a part of me, like, be a connection for them that possibly could be forever. And that goes for almost anybody that wants that. But it has to be fully reciprocated, as they talked about a lot in this episode. So if somebody wants that with me, but I think what I I don't know that everybody's always willing to do that. And I think that, that's something that I just know about myself is I love building relationships. So if I get a sense that somebody's wants to do that with me and we kind of maybe start off and see how it goes. When I say relationship though, I mean obviously I just mean like an emotional connection where it's like, do you want to be there for someone where you'll talk to them and be something that they can come to when they are having a hard time or a positive time, or just build a constant relationship for the rest of our lives? um, and obviously I mean like in a very friendship way, but I do mean giving someone a part of you because you're allowing yourself to be vulnerable with them and share a lot of stuff that you don't share with the whole world with them, and also they're doing it back, and it's a very meaningful relationship. I only have that with a select few people in my life, although I feel like, sort of like Joey on this episode, you want to have a base level of relationship with many people in your life. um all right, so again, let me kind of rewind there. I was like collecting my thoughts. So why am I doing this though? But I just find it fascinating to look at and analyze where he's at with these different people, what it means, what lessons you can take from it. There were so many interesting things in this episode that I want to talk about. For example, with Lexi, we'll talk about her and her choosing to leave the show and her timeline. I'm interested to talk a little bit about when to have kids, if that's something you want and thinking about it. She was talking a lot about her timeline, and I don't know, I haven't really looked at the stats, but I feel like in today's world it's common to wait a lot longer to have kids. And what are some of the pros and cons of doing that? You know, my wife and I waited to have kids, but there's certainly pros and cons to it. And so I can share my experience with that, my thoughts in general. And yeah, I'm definitely excited to jump into that. Also, just um, the one thing that's really interesting about this season is there's just so many women that I think Joey's in love with. And I think that they're all truly in love with him. They're not quite saying all that yet, but I think he's going to have a very hard time, like top five. Like, actually, we're down to six. I really do think it's top four, but I don't think it's going to be easy to let go of the next two. I and I will give away that I guessed, like when we got down to the end, after when the rose ceremony comes, there's 8 women left, and we're gonna cut it down to 6. And I knew, like, very confident, like 90% certainty, who the two that were going home were, and I was right. In fact, I actually predicted, no one's ever gonna know because it was just me watching by myself, but I knew like the exact order he was going to give out the roses, and I was right about that. Um, all right, let's get in. Let's get into this opening scene. So Joey's speaking about he's into multiple women and how scared he is. He's truly afraid that this is not going to work out. And then he talks a lot about how he's struggling with his energy. This was interesting though. He says, people expect me to be perfect, or he thinks people expect him to be perfect. He doesn't think he is perfect, and he's trying to figure himself out sometimes. We sort of heard a little bit about this last time when on charity season, and he was talking with his uncle, and his uncle said these had problems. He starts to think about who it is that people want him to be, and then he almost makes himself do that. And he says Joey thinks people expect him to be perfect. And okay, so I'm just trying to, I don't know Joey at all. I haven't done a lot of deep research on this, so I'm just going off of intuition of what I'm seeing from the show. But we do have a lot of clues here. So he's he's a tennis pro. He teaches tennis. Um, it takes a lot of dedication, and you're constantly practicing, working towards perfection. Not necessarily like it doesn't have to be perfect, but it's like practice makes perfect. Practice, practice, practice. So it's not like any old job where you can kind of come and just do the same thing every day and you don't necessarily care. Like, you don't choose to be a tennis pro and teach people how to do tennis unless you're really passionate about it. And so if you're practicing all the time, you're striving towards being really good. And if there's a part of your game that isn't that great, you're probably trying to shore up your weaknesses. And if you're really, really good at something, you're constantly practicing that because you can get it almost to perfection, if you will. So it just sort of speaks to a mentality that he's always practicing, right? And then his uncle says he starts to think of how people expect him to behave, and then he tries to do that. And then he shares that he thinks people expect him to be perfect, so he's going to try to do that. And you can see with almost every single conversation with every woman, like, there's been nothing that we've seen in any of the edits or anything in any of the episodes where he's really ever made a mistake. He treats every woman with respect, or every woman with respect, with kindness. He hears them out. And you can even tell, like, this episode was the hardest one for him. He just was drained. I think he was feeling the weight of that he has to carry everyone. I mean, almost every single one of them is going to come to him and say that they're in their fields, they're feeling insecure, they're having a hard time, they're seeing him build a connection with other people. And he has to sort of carry the burden of making sure that they're okay. So he's really going to feel the need to do that well. Plus, he's on camera 24/7. And so you kind of have to feel like I can't make any mistakes. If they even see me rolling my eyes or looking down when you're saying something really serious, or not giving you the time to say, like, almost like mirroring, repeating back what he hears, so that way it's like, do they feel heard? I mean, is there oftentimes they don't put the lead in a bad light. So if one of the attendees or guests on the show is starting, or contestants is like gonna say something bad about the Bachelor, like, I'm a little surprised they did show Leia when she was leaving that it was his loss that he didn't pick her, because they almost never do anything like where they say something bad about the Bachelor. But obviously, like Leia's a person too, and good for her for thinking that if someone doesn't choose her, it's their loss. I think we should all, in a way, have that attitude. Like, we want to feel really good about ourselves, and we want to just like think like, yeah, I'm deserving of the best, of course, right? But really, I think it also speaks to her immaturity. And I talked about this in another episode. And she's 23, so when I say immaturity, I don't mean that she's immature for a 23-year-old. In fact, she might even have upper 20s maturity. I don't mean anything bad by it, but she's not like somebody in her mid 30s, nor should she be, right? But she's just showing like, that's something that I can see someone that's 23 saying, and maybe not something that I would see Lexi saying. I don't think, like, because and Leia does, to her credit, she quickly comes back and says, but of course I want him to find happiness. I hope his person in there. She doesn't say anything about Maria, or if she does, we don't see it. So that was really good. Um, for me, we'll talk more about Leia as I get to that moment. But I think Leia had ups and downs. There was times where she really shined, and then there was times where she sort of said things that I think didn't make her look the best. And Joey never does that. And I think he's 28. I certainly, to put myself down a little bit, when I was 28, I was not as mature as Joey. I think Joey's more mature at 28 than I probably am today. I probably more like Leia, where I have moments that I do good, and I have moments where I say things like that, where it's like, it doesn't make you look the best. And it's something that happens in my mind, and I just say it. And sometimes I wish I could have that back, because when you get an opportunity to see somebody else doing it, it doesn't look the best. Now, I don't know if she would agree with that or not. Maybe she thinks, who cares? It's no big deal. She certainly does a good job of having a character. I could see her being on Bachelor in Paradise, and that's probably the goal of hers. She's crushing it. You know, she's 23. She made it on the show. She got the card. She burned it. Um, if she goes on Bachelor in Paradise, she could build a big following. Like, obviously, she's doing a lot of things right. So, but back to what I was saying about Joey, you know, just feeling like he needs to be perfect all the time. You can just tell, like, he's really polished. I think he really feels that weight, and I think we saw this episode that gets to him, and he really struggles with it. And it kind of reminds me back to what his uncle was saying, where his uncle was like, I've seen you really struggle because you try to be what people think you need to be. Well, we saw him really struggling this whole episode, and it really made me just think. There was a few times in the episode where I was like, Joey has 100% won me over, where he wasn't. Okay, I want to make sure I say this exactly right. So, on Charity's season, I didn't think he um like captured, he like didn't command attention in a way that made me think he could be the lead of The Bachelor. Now, everything else about him, as far as like who he is as a person, how he cares for people, the way he treats people, the kind, loving person he is, his true intentions for wanting to get married, his character. Like, obviously, all of those things are top tier, like everything you want for The Bachelor. But it's the low energy part. It's the like being even keel, not blinking. Now, it's kind of come to be endearing, and it's been who he is, and we've all kind of like wrapped ourselves around it with his season. But it's not like um it certainly, like, through the first 5 episodes, definitely exceeded my expectations of what I thought it would be. This episode, having come in this order, also is like great. It's great to see this other side of him, and we're getting more emotions. But if this episode would have been the first episode or the second episode, I think a lot of the audience would be like, yeah, this is kind of what I saw in Charity season, where it's like there's just not a lot of energy, of up and downs, of like passion. You know, like every time Maria's on screen, your like energy kicks up 20 degrees, right? And you saw it in this episode. The only part of the episode that there's any energy is when Maria's there. And so, like, let's say she's the Bachelorette, right? The whole season's going to be like that. And so that's just what, like, where I'm trying to go with all that. But it's really cool too for it not to just be about all the flashy drama of what Maria as the Bachelorette could be, and more intellectual and thinking about it and how relationships are in real life. All right. So let's get into the dates a little bit. We'll talk about, I think I'm gonna go pretty much in order. Right? A little bit we'll separate here, but um we're gonna go to the group date. So Jessie Palmer's Canadian. I think I might have known that, but I didn't remember. So that was kind of cool. I did know he spoke French, and of course he's not gonna miss an opportunity to speak French for all of us. It was fun to hear him. I was not surprised at all. Um, I'll just share here that my wife and I have two extremely close friends that live in Washington with us and moved to Washington about 2 years ago from Paris. They both speak French. Their daughter, they speak French to her. She's bilingual. She's only 3, but she's going to be bilingual, and I'd say she speaks more French than English today as a 3-year old. But it's so amazing, like the French culture. My wife and I were fortunate enough to go to Paris to visit them for their wedding, and it's an amazing country. I get so excited when I think about France, about the French language, about the Eiffel Tower, about French food, about French um, everything. Like anytime anything French comes up, I love it. So uh, the fact that this episode was in Montreal and they're speaking French and they got that French scavenger hunt, which I will say they just like dropped, like it was like a plot line that they forgot to do because there was no scavenger hunt, but it was really fun. They do kind of drop it. They did it about the right amount because after a while it would just get old. But it was really fun. They you can see on the group date they're going to kind of explore a little bit. Really, it's like they're stopping in a couple different shops, and um, it's sort of like some of the one-on-one dates that Joey's done in the other cities, but this time it's happening on the group date. The only thing that really made sense, I mean, it is that a lot of the girls are saying that they felt like they were left out or in the background. And I think some of the other group dates, there's like a stage and everybody gets their 2 cents to pop up and do something. Or there's a competition, or there's like you watch the night sword fight and then everybody you remember has the eye contact moment with Joey and they have like sort of sharing energy moment. And this was sort of just like um they're all walking through town together, and if you're a person that can like kind of swing in and take your little moment, maybe get a kiss in or do a little dance or make eye contact or get a little laugh. But it's intimidating because like it's not really being forced for you. It's not being served up. So you have to take the initiative to stand out amongst the group. And it does give Joey an opportunity to see if any of the women are like that or can do that, but he says that he's not that way. I don't think he would be the one doing that. And I don't really remember how that went on charity season, but he definitely could appreciate the women that shared during the group date portion that um, they really didn't feel like they were seen or heard, and it was hard. We see some of the girls are struggling. Kelsey A is really struggling. She's talking about being insecure with Caitlin and how she doesn't like feeling insecure at all. Like, and nobody does. Like, feeling insecure, it's okay, and we all feel insecure. But when it happens, you don't, you definitely don't want to admit it, and it sucks. And then you're in your head a little bit. Jess says she doesn't understand why she hasn't had a one-on-one, and I'm feeling a lot nicer. Like I'm wanting to be a lot more compassionate and kind and channel Joey with my recap right now. So I'm going to try my best to do that. Um, but I will say, in my opinion, the reason Jess isn't getting a one-on-one is obvious. And it's something that if you were to go back and listen to my previous recaps, you would hear me say from episode 1 pretty much, maybe episode 2. But like Jess, obviously, I think she's in her mid 20s. She's probably a mega fan of the show. She grew up in Tennessee, then moves to Denver, then moves to LA. And she just talks about how she keeps going west. She's got the Southern girl accent. On the first night, like it's like when there's 32 women and 10 people are going home, you know you have to kind of do something, right? And it just keeps happening. Like she's stealing it. So what she does on the first night is she gets time with him, she kisses him, she comes back, tells all the women that she kissed him. So she gets the first kiss, right? And then you get all the big oath. I don't know what to call it when basically women just drop their chin to the floor and they're like, oh. I don't think guys really do that. But you got like 10 women in the background doing that. So of course that's gonna make it on screen, right? Then she goes and steals him again, so she's getting more time. So she's pulling out all these cards from Bachelor. Like if you're a mega fan of the show and you've watched the show, you basically know what to do to kind of get attention. And if you can get ratings, meaning like you're causing a little bit of like the right amount of drama, you're being almost a villain in the house, but she quickly turns and drops the villain act. And it to me it was just like Jess knew that this is a game and you need to do all these right. You have so many cards you can play that are going to get you to be making it to the next episode. And like I've said in the past, I think the lead picks like okay, if we have to send so many people home and we get to keep so many people, they get us pick like 70% or 75% of what they want. And then the producers are saying these 25% of people are going to make it to the next episode because they have ratings, because they are included in drama, because we want them to stick around for whatever reason. And obviously the lead just doesn't want them. And the season I kind of figured that out, and again I haven't been watching that long, but was when Matt was the Bachelor, and there was this one woman on there that was horrible. Like Matt is like one of the biggest studs that's ever been the Bachelor ever. I mean, and so in real life, this dude doesn't need to be the Bachelor. He can date anybody he wants. And so, and then we have 30 women to choose from, and there's one that, like in real life, he would never go on a date with. I'm just sorry. I just know. Like, and she makes it to like the top 15 or maybe even the top 12, but yet she's the biggest source of drama on the whole thing since night one. And it was obvious that Matt didn't want her. They had no chemistry. They didn't have any connection, but she was just involved in all the drama. And so it was just obvious to me that if you do that, if you do something to make you stand out, they're going to pull you along. Right? So, but the problem is that Jess and Joey never built the connection. There's never, like, I do feel like almost at this point in the show, the lead feels like they have to kiss you. And so Joey's kissed all of them. He's making out with all of them. I mean, I don't think that he probably disliked her or probably felt like there's no way she should move on more than, I mean, maybe he was fine with her moving on and other people aren't going to move on, right? But he never, in my mind, they never had a connection, and he tells her that. And he says, she basically starts to share that she's falling for him, and he just he just like jumps right in and he's like, look, if someone is going to totally open up and they're giving all that much, they shouldn't have to stay. And actually, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. I'm just going to jump to it right now because I might as well. So she says she's falling to him. She really wants the one-on-one. You can tell Joey's not feeling it back with Jess. Joey doesn't think it's right to keep her there when he knows it's not her. And he says no one should have to give as much as she is trying to give, and it just isn't reciprocated. And then he feels bad that he hurt someone, and he does care about her. So he doesn't want to hurt her. You can tell that Jess does not see it coming, and she didn't get to say goodbye to anyone. So just to unpack that a little bit, I 1000% believe that he knew he hurt her, and he did not like that at all. He doesn't want to hurt anyone. That's his big fear. She was just sitting there saying how much she was falling for him, and she was expressing that she wants the one-on-one. And if you go back and rewatch it, you can see that she's means it. And I believe it. I think that what happened is she knows she has to pull out the cards in the beginning to make it to the next few episodes. So she does that for a couple of episodes. But Joey's truly awesome and amazing and the kind, loving, warm person. And she probably, I think it's like they're all starting to feel it. They're all going through this process that basically it always creates real feelings. Doesn't mean you want to propose and get married at the end. I don't think that they always all feel like they want to get engaged at the end, but I definitely feel like they're all starting to fall in love, or their heart starts being in it. Their heart gets broken if they don't want to break up and they have to. Like if they're top two and then they get let go, like what happened to Joey, I do think that their heart is broken and it takes some time to get over, right? Well, Jess has gotten to the point where she's starting to fall for him, and she truly means it. And, you're on this competition, and you're getting to make you're making it to the next round every week, but you're not getting a one-on-one. So you're sort of starting comparing yourself to all the women that are getting one-on-ones, and why am I not getting one? Am I not as good as them? Am I not as attractive as them? What is the deal? And you'd start to feel insecure about that, and then that's sort of like a downward spiral. And so Joey just says it's not right to keep you here, and he knows he's not feeling it for her. I don't think he ever was. And I don't think that there was ever a time where Jess really let on that she was this sad about it. Like, she never says before this episode that, um, you know, I really want a one on one. I'm starting to feel insecure that I'm not getting one. So it probably felt like okay to keep her along before this episode because she wasn't saying those things. She was excited and happy to be moving on. But now we're getting to the point where like there's only 6 women left. And so if you're not, I would say even if she like didn't profess all those things and they just had a great little conversation and then she went back and then she didn't get the group date rose, that she would have been going home at the end of this rose ceremony anyway, because like he says, I'm not getting there with you. So he really does the right thing, I think, in letting her go home. Then she doesn't get to say bye to anyone. She'll get to see him at the women tell all. I think she has a great shot at making it on Paradise. um, I'm sure, like, if you look back at her season, it's been great. It's been cool to get to know her, and I will certainly not forget her. And I think I hope none of this is taken that, like, Jess is bad. I've liked Jess the whole time. She's been entertaining, and you can tell she's a fun and great person. And I think that she will meet somebody and be a great partner to someone someday. But I do think that she went on the show, in my opinion, to like they all go on the show to get, notoriety to some degree. And I think she went on the show knowing how to play some cards. She did them very well. It worked. She made it, we're on episode 6. She made it top 10, and then it just time ran out. Um yeah. All right. Let's go back now. Back to the group date. Okay. Joey, I wrote down Joey honestly looks like he just wants to go home. And that was the thing on this group date was he like was really the girls are all saying they're struggling. Joey looks like he doesn't even want to be there. And you're seeing little cuts of Joey like making out with someone and then looks like he's so exhausted. Like he has to make out with them. That's how it really felt. There's times where like in no other episode have I felt like I did this episode. It just felt like, I mean, like making out with someone is sort of a intimate connection that you only do with so many people, right? And he just has to. Like they're coming up, they're stealing kisses. He has to do it. After a certain, like if you're not feeling it emotionally, it would have been kind of terrible. He looked like he did not want to be there. So then we get the night portion of the group date, and Joey shares his feelings again that he's nervous about developing feelings and it not being reciprocated. I think he's like going through this spiral in his head too. I also wrote down that Joey does a great job of giving attention, but kind of spreading it out evenly, calling a different girl to spend time with. He asked Caitlin, he pulls her away, can I get some time with you? And then she gets sent home at the end. Now, I predicted she was going to get sent home at the end because I think that basically it was obvious to me because you just knew how strong his connections were with the other women and that I didn't ever feel like it was that strong with her or with Leia. Um, but I think he pulled Caitlin aside. Number one, like I said, he does a great job of evenly spreading it around. Like I've noticed Maria is like one of the only ones. that sort of gets a rose before the rose ceremony. But really, it's always been for a different reason. So the first time she got it for the 2-on-1, which Joey had nothing to do with. She just had that drama with Sydney, and the producers did the 2-on-1. Then she gets the group date rose, but she really did. She shared about her mom in the car accident, and I think he just felt the most connected to her in the group date rose. And then she gets the 1-on-1, and of course we were on episode 6 and she hadn't had a 1-on-1 yet. So she's got 3 weeks in a row now. She's had a rose before the other women. I definitely think the other women are going to feel like they're going to notice that Maria is a top, like she's the one to be knocking down right now, right? Um, but for the most part, other than that, he's he's giving group date roses out to different people, and he's asking different people if they can have time with him. I mean, he's really just trying to make, I think, everyone feel seen. Sometimes we've seen in the past where the lead is like obviously into like two people and everybody else is sort of just like getting a smile, but really like they're basically living for two of the people or whatever. I think with Joey though, number one, we never get to see how he's feeling, and number two, he's just a good person that wants to give everybody their, like, he wants everyone to feel welcome and included. So during Kelsey A's time, she talks about how it's very difficult. She's feeling insecure. She wants to get in there in the group. She wants to feel but she also wants to feel wanted. She doesn't want to feel like she's in the background. She has a bright, and Joey says he totally gets it, and you could just sense how real it was. Like, and he's like, you know, you're never in the background. You have a brightness about her. He'd been looking forward to seeing her. And you can just tell she's getting really nervous. She starts whispering. She's falling for him. They kiss. I wrote down, I love Kelsey A. She like makes me want to cry. She's got this huge smile. You can tell how like like how much she is falling for him hard. And you could see how basically what happened with her is she she had the like incredibly emotional 1-on-1 with him last week, and then she had to go back to, or it might have been 2 weeks ago, but she had to go back to the group day. And I think that that's always the hardest thing. Like, we always hear about how um, if you go on the 1-on-1, you almost feel like in real life you're dating this person, but now you have to watch them date other people. And um, that would be incredibly terrible. Like, to take a person out, like for me, like take a girl out on a date and feel like, you know, like, oh, this is my person, and we're having a connection. They've expressed that they're sort of falling for me, and I know I'm feeling it too. And then, you know, you're sharing intimate things with each other, and then like literally the next week to have it just be like, yeah, we did say all that, but I can't really say it now in front of all these other men. And I'm seeing you sharing it with all these other men too. Like, it would totally tear me up inside. It'd be horrible. I don't know what I would do. And so you can see that coming out where she is not feeling great about watching him with all these other women. And she's not feeling like she wants to jump in and like insert herself when he's smiling with other women. And I could totally relate to that. But then he gives her the validation and everything she needs in this moment, and she's all of a sudden back on cloud nine. She's feeling great. And I truly think that Kelsey A is the one to beat. I think she's in first place. I did not think that. I thought that could be Daisy. I thought that could be Lexi. Maybe Maria. Maria's such an enigma, as Joey would say, and it's so hard to know what's going on with her. But maybe Maria. I thought Kelsey A is in the top 4, but she was in 4th. Definitely thinking she's number 1 now. And Evan from Your Mom and Dad podcast, he said the same thing, that she's number 1. But that was after last week's episode, and I didn't think that. I totally disagreed with him. I was like, you know, she really hit me, and like I felt like solid top 4 vibes. Like she's getting a hometown. I was with Evan, like she is getting a hometown. But I didn't think ahead of Daisy. Sorry, I mean, oh, excuse me. I've been like swallowing my yawn like 10 times there. I just thought like there's no way somebody's ahead of Lexi and Daisy and Maria, and so I was like, well, now I think it's like she's number 1. And the reason for that is there's it's like I think it's Kelsey A and Maria. And the reason is with Maria, it's like the he doesn't know what to expect and excitement, and he gets to be this like fun Joey. Like I feel like he can let his guard down totally with Maria, and he can be goofy, and but she's like also like they're both really cool, beautiful, perfect for TV people, always looking great, always saying the right thing, like always being endearing. Everybody's gonna like them. They always look suave. They always look buttoned up and sharp, but at the same time, like their version of just being real, it just looks better than everybody else's, but it's genuine. They're just doing like they're letting themselves out and being their true selves in front of each other. And I don't know if he's quite there with Kelsey A yet, but what Kelsey A has that's, in my opinion, bringing her to number 1 is I think a stronger like love connection where I think he feels more of that like marriage love. With Maria, I think it's probably right now, not saying it can't be that marriage love, but I think it's more of like the excitement where you're like, I just want to go out on dates with you. But with Kelsey A, I think it's more of a forever thing. And it's more like you could be the person I grow old with. And I think that's really important, Joey. It's as is really important to me. So I think that she is the one to beat. All right, so let's move on to Lexi now. So Lexi on kids. This is a super interesting topic to me. I'm just gonna. This isn't the part in the episode where Lexi goes home, but I'm gonna just talk about all of Lexi right here. So we're in the group date portion, and she says she's gonna use this time with him to talk about her timeline on kids, and she just wants to know how long would he like let's say they make it at the end, how long does he want to do the engagement, how long into marriage before having kids? And Joey says he's gonna give, he gives the perfect answer. He's like, I'm just gonna give you my truth on where I'm at right now. If I was with the right woman, it certainly would be a conversation and my opinion can change, but all I can do is tell you like where I'm at right now. And I think in real life, the conversation probably would have been flowed a little bit differently. Like maybe he would have shared a little bit and then Lexi shares a little bit and then back and forth. But because of the setup of the show, it's like he just gives his whole answer, right? And he says he's picturing a 2 to 3 year engagement. And then he's picturing 2 to 3 years of marriage and then kids. And she says, I've never had someone be so caring. He is a blessing to her. Thinking about timing on kids. Are they a good fit? Just taking this time to share my general take, whatever. So she goes back. I think she appreciates his answer and she gives him a hug. And then she goes back and you can just tell like that's all she's thinking about. Like she doesn't care at all about any other drama. Who gets the rose? Like, in fact, it's probably a great thing that he didn't pick her for the group date rose because I think she would have ended up leaving on her own anyway. But then later in the episode, we get Lexi sneaking off to Joey's room. I was blown away by her sending herself home. So she says she's feeling nervous about going in there. And it's like, when she said that, I thought it was nervous for like what he might say, and then she'd have to make a decision. But she never gives him a chance to say anything. She says she felt heard and respected. She hasn't ever felt that way before. She hasn't opened up to anyone else about her health, but she's in her 30s. She does not have the privilege to wait. And she basically says she can't stay. And I was like, what? I mean, you didn't even wait to see what he's going to say. You're just going home. So she takes herself out. She says it's okay that he isn't there and you can't make someone get there. And then she tells Maria and Daisy, and they're having a hard time with it too. And Joey says that he just truthfully wishes he had more time with her and that he didn't see an ending like this. He thought he was going to get more time next week. So we know. Like, that's another thing too. If Lexi hadn't taken herself out, she would have 1000% made it to the next week. And I think that if I go back and look at who is still there, that Rachel wouldn't be there. And I think we all had in the beginning we had Rachel a lot higher, but I think it's definitely, oh, I haven't even thinking about Jen this whole time. Totally spaced on her. She's super high up there too. It's definitely like I can't see him easily sending Jen home. But I think that Daisy is gonna stick around, and then Kelsey A, I think, is definitely sticking around. So no, wait, Rachel would have been the one. So, and we'll see that. I mean, no offense to Rachel, but we will see her go home next week. So, I just wanted to use this time to talk a little bit about the whole kids thing, and then we'll come back to Lexi. So, Lexi, if I'm not mistaken, was 31 or 30. She says she's in her 30s, and I think we all know that Medina was 31 and she was the oldest. So, Lexi has endometriosis, not sure if she can have kids. And not only did she have endometriosis, but she had it really bad to the point where it was all in her lungs, and she had to have multiple surgeries, and it's been really hard on her health. So, if there are levels to endometriosis, she has like I would call it the highest level probably, and she getting older is certainly not going to make that easier or better. So, she needs to figure out if she wants to have kids soon. And that's got to be a really hard thing because, like Joey said, I mean, Joey's timeline was like 5 years and then try to have kids. And I think that is that's a long timeline. But at the same time, from Lexi's reality is like, let's say she's 30. If you meet someone that you're going to have kids with, like, or sorry, let me backtrack. If you want to have kids with someone, if it's someone that you are already very good friends with but you're not dating and then you decide to date them, maybe you can cut back some of the timeline because you already know them really well. But if it's not and it's someone that you're just meeting, you need some time to date. And then there's the will you marry me, and then there's how long is the engagement. Let's say it's a 6-month engagement and 6 month of dating. That's a really fast timeline, and now you're 31. But that's like really fast. I don't think it's normally like that. And then, okay, so now you're married. Well, because you did your dating and engagement so fast, are you going to be married for like at least a year and then try? So let's say just that you're married for 1 year, then you start trying, get pregnant right away, which doesn't always happen, and especially not with her case, with endometriosis and how it might not work right away. She probably isn't going to get pregnant like month one, but let's just say she did. So a year of dating. Now she's 32, and she gets pregnant right away. Um, she's still 32, but she's like 32 in 9 months or 10 months, so she's almost 33. So like, and I think she might even be 31 right now. I don't know for sure. It doesn't, but like, I guess my point is like, there's a really good chance that she's not going to have kids until like 35. And I think that people don't like backtrack like that. So when my wife and I got married, I had said to her, I think it was very like analytical, and I was like, hey, I'd like to try to, after like a year, I'd like to try to have kids. Like, I wanted to wait 1 year, and then I wanted to try. I don't think I even really wanted to wait the year. I was like, let's just try. But I knew I wanted to just like have kids right away. And she had said, I want to wait a little bit. Well, we ended up, I think we probably ended up having kids a little bit longer than I wanted to, but a little bit sooner than she wanted to. And when I say a little bit, I mean, I guess what I mean by that is neither of us felt that strongly about it. And we've talked about it since then. And it was a little bit sooner than she wanted, but it wasn't like it wasn't a big deal. Like neither of us felt like, hey, this is a deal breaker. We were very like, we both wanted kids. I think we were both okay. So it wasn't like the end of the world. But when we got married, I'm trying to think how old I was. So like I was go back so I was 31 and she was 28. So I started doing the math in my head at like 29 when I was getting ready to propose. And I was just like, so if I propose here, and then how long are we going to be engaged, and then how long are we going to be married, and then how if we start getting pregnant here, and then you got to wait 9 months, and then the baby's born, and that day one, how old am I going to be? And our daughter's 4, so I was 33. I was 33 when our daughter was born. So that's like we waited the 1 year, and then we got pregnant, and then I was 33. Well, then I also did my head back like before I even proposed. I did in my head like, well, how many kids do we want to have? Well, I know I want to at least have 2, but maybe 3, maybe 4. And if I have my first kid at 33, and then we have to wait a while, like maybe wait a year, and then try to get pregnant again, and then you got to wait. So it's basically like it's a really hard. It doesn't take that long to get 2 years between your kids because you've got some time of just mom healing from giving birth and then just being new parents. About a year is the right amount of time. Now, you can do it faster than that, but that's quick. I mean, giving yourself, I think a year is quick, but at least you're giving yourself some breathing room. And then maybe you have another kid. Well, now we might, well, I don't know if we're going to have another kid or not, but we certainly are talking about it. And our second child is almost 2. And we're not pregnant now. So if she does get pregnant, there'd almost be a 3-year gap in there. And now I'm 37. And like if my wife were to get pregnant today, I'd still be 37, but I'd be close to 38. And so it's just like, and my wife's 35. Well, when we got married, she was 28. And I just don't think she ever would have thought, like, oh, I'm 28. If we have 3 kids, I'll be 35. I don't think she would have thought that. And I guess my whole point is it's so common now for people to say they want to wait or they don't want to have kids. Like they just like, they say they don't want to have kids when they're 22. But I don't know if they really mean that 100%. And they probably are thinking, I want to have kids, but I don't know how many. And I want to wait till I'm 30 and then I'll figure it out. And it's like, well, if you find your person at 24 and you decide to propose at 30 and get married, and then you're jumping in to have kids and you only want to have 2, it's sort of perfect, right? But if you don't find your person and you find yourself at 31 and you're not dating anyone, I do think you are going to feel a huge amount of pressure, especially if you're a woman, to like meet somebody and have kids, and you might be settling, and then you might feel resentment on yourself and just on the world for whatever, for pressuring you. And sort of that timeline that I think especially women feel, it's like she doesn't have the privilege. That's was her words. Like men do have the privilege to be able to have kids, later in life. but that was something I was very aware of, is like, yes, I can have kids later in life, but my wife can't, number one. And number two, like, do we want to? Like, there is a certain age where you're doing the math. Like, I'm just very much doing the math in my head, and I'm like, well, what if we have our fourth kid when I'm 40? Which is a real possibility for me if we have four. And well, then when they turn 18 and they're going off to college, you're 58. I mean, 58, it can be, you can be a young 58 or you can not be a young 58. And it has a lot to do with how you take care of yourself, which, as I've started to get into my later 30s, I'm like getting really into how I take care of myself, but wasn't necessarily like that in my early 20s. So I'm kind of making up for some of that now. And it's just like, um, I don't know. I just don't think people think about it. I think they just think they have all this time, but really, once you hit 30, it's just the process of, like, for example, when my wife and I tried to have kids the first time, it took us a long time. Like, we didn't have success in the first month. And so, there's a lot of emotions that go into that. But then if you find yourself like 9 months down the road and then you do get pregnant, it's very exciting. But then it's 9 more months before the baby's born. And all of a sudden a year and a half's gone by, and and then you're waiting a year, and then maybe you decide, do I want to try again? And you're just, in my head, I'm just like always thinking like, well, the clock's ticking, but at the same time, it's a lot easier said than done for me. Or it's a lot, I'm sorry, that didn't come out right. It's a lot easier for a man to be like, yeah, let's have the next kid. But what if mom feels like her body's not ready? And what if, emotionally she doesn't want to do it? I mean, you know, especially when women will probably have more hormones and feel like maybe they have different feelings about it after the first child. Maybe they go through postpartum. Maybe there's breastfeeding involved. And, like, for example, for us, um, when Alex is breastfeeding, it wasn't easy to try to get pregnant again. So we almost have to wait for that to end. And, with our second child, she was breastfeeding, it's like 17 months. So anyway, there's a lot of information there, but I really felt like, not to say that Lexi like waited too long to think about this. She's obviously thought about it, and probably for several years now. And it sounds like she was in a long-term relationship and then she opened up about it and it didn't go well. So I'm not meaning any of this towards Lexi, because obviously she's thought about it. And um, I just wanted to use this as a jumping point to talk about the general um, public out there, that I see a lot of young people saying they want to wait. I think part of it is just like they don't want to have as many kids. But if they truly don't want to have any kids and then they change their mind about that, that is kind of like a thing. Um, it's one of those things where I think you have to be really honest with yourself. Like, do I want to have kids or not? Now, I also see young people having kids earlier than like me. For example, my brother um, knew that he wanted to and has a beautiful daughter, and he is 11 years younger than me. And that's really cool to me. Like, just seeing somebody, like, I knew I wasn't ready until my 30s. Everything has worked out okay for me because I wasn't ready in my 20s, but I knew that I wanted to. And I do remember, like, at that, I was 29 and I was like, okay, I want to propose. And then I feel like we've got to quickly start having kids. I was one of those cases where I'd been dating the Alex, who's now my wife, for a long time before I proposed. So we'd actually been together. Like, we've been together since 2011. So 13 years now. So it's just like, my situation really couldn't have worked out better from the whole timing perspective. But I definitely got lucky. What if she would have said no? I would have been really stressed about it. I just know for a fact I would have. I don't know what I would have done, and I don't envy anybody in that situation. All right, so let's go back to Lexi. So I think she makes the right call. She goes out with class. Um, Joey, I think, could have come around. Like, I do think that she could have been top two. Maybe she would have been the one he picked. But I think that maybe he comes around, meaning he would have done almost a year engagement. And then if they decide to get married, have kids right away. Like, I think that could have been something he would have done. Joey seems like the kind of person to me that like would love to be in his late 30s and 40s because he just seems like he doesn't need to go party. I don't think he's about that at all. I think he would love having a wife and being married. And I do think that once you like there's sort of a giving off, like once you get married, it's like you're moving on to a new stage in life. You're letting go of a lot of the freedoms of being single and you're committing to it forever. And you're letting go of sort of your independence and you're committing to the partnership forever. And I think that Joey's going to find that he loves that and he doesn't need to hold on to anything. And then once you kind of make that mental switch, it's like, well, let's have kids now. I do think there's a part of him that's going to want to like be married and go maybe travel and be in a relationship with his new wife. But at the same time, like you can do that having kids. And if you're in love with someone, which I think he would be if he chose Lexi, and they're expressing how huge of a need it is that they need to try to have kids right away because they have a health problem. I think you would want to like you'd be all in. You'd be like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do everything we can and like take this burden off of you, take as much stress off of you as I can. How can I research this? How can I help out? What can we do? Can we eat certain things? Can we see doctor? Like he would have been all in. So I honestly think that maybe if he had more time, he like would have totally gotten there and it could have worked out. She just like takes herself out of it. I think that it was the easier thing to do. I mean, it was hard. I just think that there would have been risk because he might not have. He might not have chose her. She would have been getting farther and farther along, and then maybe he doesn't choose her, and maybe she didn't want to put herself there. But I really do think that there's a possibility he would have done all of that. And I don't know. You just never know what could have happened. I do think that Lexi comes out looking amazing, and hopefully she'll meet somebody after being on the show. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing Lexi at the Women Tell All, seeing how she's doing. I'm sure she'll be doing great. Cannot wait to see her again, and sad to see her go. So let's go back to the group date. So Jen, as I said a minute ago, totally spaced on Jen. I think it's like there's so many top fours. I don't even know where to put Jen. But he says that Jen does a great job. So Jen's sort of the opposite of Lexi on the group date, or opposite of Kelsey A, where on the group date she is doing really well at standing out and giving him little touches and little looks, and they have some dumb conversations in front of people, and they showed a little bit how he was just like totally vibing with her with all the other women around. She says she's falling for him. You can tell he really, really likes Jen. Um, and then Jen gets the group date rose. And you can tell like he gives her the group date rose. He sends Jess home. He comes back in. He gives Jen the group date rose, and he's just like totally wiped. And he's like, "I'm out of here." So that's the end of the group date rose. I'm gonna cut to Kelsey T's one-on-one. For Kelsey T, the main focus was all on trust. She is hoping to have a very genuine, honest conversation. She shares a little bit about trust and why she's at with that. I thought that her date sucked, and I would not have wanted this date at all. So, um, like, just think about Maria's date real quick. Like, Maria gets this like limo, and then helicopter, and then back to limo, and then like she got to pick out the gown, and then the dinner portion. It was like fun, 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 fun. Like all like they had more conversation and all of those things than Kelsey T gets basically in all of her date, including the dinner portion. And that's not even including Maria's dinner portion. She's learning Circus Olay stuff. Joey's getting all dizzy. I wouldn't want to do any of that. It would be exhausting. Like, they both look great in workout clothes. Um, and like he has to pick one of them to do that date. And I would have probably done the exact same thing, but it just sucks for Kelsey T. She looked like she didn't want to do it at all. And I will say that Joey, I don't think he had I think he was emotionally swamped, but he really showed up and tried. Like, he smiled a lot. He acted like he was having fun. He looked really into it. But like, I don't know. I just kept thinking like, this date looks like it sucks. Um. So if we cut to the dinner portion of the date, she shares that she had a close relationship with her dad and that he was a safe place. And then uh, the dad stopped talking to her. And Joey's like, why did that happen? And she says, if it's all about religion with him, if you're not in the religion, you don't live there. So she has to move out, live with her mom. She says, we don't get a lot of detail, but she says she chose to go to college and her dad didn't like that. We see Joey wiping away more tears. But she does share that she's rebuilding her relationship with her dad. This I just can't. I always go back to like her dad's out there in real life, probably gonna see this, and it's not gonna make him happy. She just told the whole world that what he did. I gotta say, like, let's say I did that. I was her dad. I wouldn't be very happy if you told the whole world. Now, obviously, her dad's not in the right for doing that. I'm just trying to say that I feel like they're gonna feel this like in their real life relationship. This will probably be a source of tension. Like, you told the whole world, and she'll probably be like, "Well, you know you shouldn't have done it if you're not proud of it, right?" But that doesn't necessarily help your efforts at rebuilding. So, just my quick thoughts on this. Um, my wife's father is a retired pastor and very religious, and I don't know how he would react if Alex was like openly just was like, I'm not into it, and she is into it, so it works out. But I definitely think he I don't know exactly how it would go, but she certainly wouldn't have been asked to leave the home. And it would have just been like a conversation between them, I think, and they would have continued to talk through it. So for a dad to um be like, well, if you're not in the religion, you don't live here, that's a pretty big deal. I don't like that. Obviously, I don't agree with that. I have two daughters of my own, and there is no way in hell I'm kicking them out of my home and not talking to them for years. No, I don't understand that. I don't get a dad wanting to do that or being that way. I don't like, obviously, I have strong feelings about a lot of stuff. In no way do my children have to feel the same way. Like, I would, oh, excuse me. I'm going to teach them and help them grow and show them what I'm into. And I hope that we can share some stuff. But, like, they're going to be their own people. I'm super excited to see who they're going to become. This is just absurd, like, for dad not to talk to him anymore. So she feels like Joey understands. She says she wants the husband. She wants to feel loved. I'm thinking to myself, Joey's given nothing back in return. Not sure how he's feeling at all about Kelsey T. And then he does his little interview and he's like, I'm so connected and bonded with her. And she gets the rose. I'm just like, okay, I'm not seeing this. I'm not saying that he doesn't. Like obviously he's we've seen in the past that they do have a connection and he likes her. I'm not sure she is really top six, and that's why in my mind it's like Rachel and Kelsey T are going home next week. I'm glad they got this time. I don't think she's making it next week. So let's go to Maria. So Maria is the highlight of the episode again. Every week, she's the highlight of the episode. And I love it. I'm all for it. I am literally just looking forward to Maria every week. Um, so we get the guy that comes and takes her out of the room with all the women. She goes down and gets in the limo. She teases him. He loves it. He says she's an enigma. She's able to get through to him through all the emotions. And I saw right from the beginning, like Maria coming on the screen and being in his life is the only thing that made him happy the whole week. He just was like all in his head, all in his feels. He was swamped. He was like exhausted. He didn't want to be there. He was making out with people, and it looked like he did not want to at all. And Maria, he was excited to be around. And it wasn't like a lot of excitement. It wasn't like every other episode, he's been happier. I just think that he shined the brightest with Maria this week in a really, really down week overall. But she was leaning in. She loved the dresses. Then he's wearing a sweet tuxedo. They both look amazing. He says he doesn't have to overthink it with her. They do the helicopter. And that was really cool because she's from Canada. I don't know if she's from Monterey or, sorry, Montreal. I did a Peloton on Monterey this morning. It was a scenic ride. But I don't think she's from Montreal, but she's from Canada. She lives in the estates somewhere in Canada, and the Sprinkle Factory, and or the Sprinkle Estate. But she says she gets to see her country in a new way. She's loving it. Um, Joey looks happy, just low energy with her. And again, I've talked about that a lot, but you can just see it coming out. She says she's already falling for him. She says, like, mean what you say what you mean. He says, yep, I'm all about it. I agree. I'm falling for you in ways. She says she's falling for him in ways she didn't expect. She makes him happy. They kiss. And Maria gets the rose. And, the dinner portion with Maria, I thought was really real. She didn't have to share some crazy revelation. She had already talked a lot about her mom, but I just liked how, like, I think she has a thing with her mom, like the accident. But she shared in a TikTok that I watched tonight after the episode a lot more than we ever see on the show. And what I thought was interesting about that is the TikTok was her account. So she's sort of like, if you think about the TikTok, she's controlling that. She gets to hit record, and it was live, and then I think it was live, and then she gets to talk, and then she ends it, right? Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was pre-recorded because there was some captions written on. But she's controlling what she wants to say, and if she doesn't like it, she can re-record it or whatever. But if she shares something on the show, they could edit it, cut it, they could leave it out, put it in, and it's just like, I think she was a little bit more careful about, like, what do I want to say about my family when I go on here, which I respect that a lot. And also I just think it's cliche at this point to be like, okay, we're in our one-on-one dinner portion, so I have to tell you about how the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And it's like, no, just be real. That's what we really want, at least what I want. Okay, so we go to the cocktail party. Um, Daisy does the foot massage. Got to see her a little bit. Daisy sort of just like has kind of come down a little bit since her one-on-one. Part of it could be that she hasn't had her one-on-one in a while. She really blew us all away, I think, with she is an amazing person. She's overcome a lot. She's starting a nonprofit. She seems like she's just a pleasure to be around, pleasant all the time, happy, wonderful. She's smart. I thought her foot massage was a little bit of a move, but definitely done very tactfully, very well done. Not a big move. It was just like, how can I be a little different? Which, of course, we all want to stand out. Um, but the only reason I say she's coming down a little bit is I think she just basically like was the mountain peak. Like, if Joey's a hiker, he climbs the highest peak with Daisy on like day one. Then he's going up and down, he's hiking all over the place, and nothing's ever surpassing Daisy, right? But now we're in week 6, and he's actually surpassed Daisy with Maria at this point, and he's surpassed Daisy with Kelsey A at this point. And I think Jen is kind of like hovering right around there, but because he's had more time with Jen, I think Jen is past Daisy overall. Daisy was sort of just like super high peak and then drop off. And it's like you always remember that you got this crazy high view, beautiful peak with Daisy, but it's been a long time. And she sort of just like pops in and her little group date moment and gets, she doesn't do anything wrong and continues to be a pleasure to be around, but I don't know that she's progressed any farther than where she started. Then we get Jen, who already has a rose. It was kind of cool, or I guess it was not cool is the right word, but it was interesting to see Jen like take him back in front of the other women, play piano, and you could see that the girls feeling awkward about it. Um, Nothing much to say there, but made me question a little bit. Like I don't know. Did she just really want to show him the piano because she can play piano? And she wanted to do something different and it just was what it was that it was in front of the other people, or did she do that intentionally? But with Jen, even though I see Maria and Kelsey a little bit stronger than Jen, I don't know how he's going to let go of Jen. Like, I just think to myself, like, I could see myself letting go of Maria. I'm trying to put myself in his shoes. I could see him letting go of Maria because I don't know that the love is there as much. I would have a really hard. I mean, honestly, if I was the Bachelor in this season, I don't know what I would do. But um, I just think that Jen is going to be really hard to say goodbye to because she's just amazing. Now that being said, so is Maria, and so was Lexi, and so is Daisy, and so is Kelsey A. I mean, it's just like it's an amazing cast of women. I don't know what he's going to do. It's going to be tough. So then we get to the rose ceremony. Jessie Palmer looks like a freaking boss in his outfit. And then I guessed who was going home, Leia and Caitlin. Felt bad for Caitlin. Leia, I said from the very beginning, she got the first impression rose. He never cared about Leia. She got the rose because she gave away that card, and he knew her from the end of Charity season, and she did make the biggest first impression on him, but he never felt any certain type of way about Leia, and I don't think he was sad at all when Leia went home. And I mean, how do you think he felt when Lexi went home? Versus, I don't think he cared at all when Leia went home. That's all I got this week. Maria definitely shared a really interesting TikTok about a little bit more information on that car crash and why she chooses to be happy. And she said she's not 100% innocent with Sydney. And if you watch the video, you can see like she's not saying anything bad. She's just saying like, she got a good edit. She's not all innocent. I think she was doing the right thing, like taking the high road. I think she probably even trying to help Sydney out because Sydney's probably feeling a lot of heat. Yeah, but it was interesting to see that. Definitely a great episode. Looking forward to next week. Thank you. If you're still listening at this point, thank you so much. It truly means a lot to me. If there's any way you could go out to the YouTube video and subscribe, I am trying to get to 50 subscribers so I can do some YouTube lives. That would be amazing. Thanks again. Thanks, everyone. Bye.